as you're going through this and you get the sense that they're not entirely engaged, like their responses are taking just a little too long, and maybe you hear some clicking of the keyboard in the background. Do you call them
Mhm.
out on it? How do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a really because you're always going to get, especially when you're selling over the telephone. And I think we've talked about this before. I've seen sales guys doing that, right? Like they're on the sales call, but I can see they're not engaged. And you go, well, that guy will never hit his numbers. Clearly, that's not going to happen. So you got to ask them a question to get their attention. And that's a feel thing. I don't know.
Mhm.
It
Well,
just
you're right. Questions, yeah, a distracted brain, uh, it's not paying attention to you. But when you ask a question, the brain goes, "Oh, they just asked something.
Mhm.
I need to now pay attention." And that's exactly why you want to do a conversation and ask questions along the way. Like Chuck was saying, it's a well orchestrated plan of asking questions, tying down along the way. That's
Mhm.
why presentations don't work. Is because you numb them and they start paying attention to something that's more interesting than you babbling on about whatever it is you're babbling on about. So when you ask a question, your brain, what they, and if
Mhm.
you ask if you're asking questions on a regular basis, throughout the timeline of the conversation, they're going to pay attention because they don't want to sound stupid. So you want to, that's why you want to have a conversation when you're selling stuff, not a
Right.
presentation. One of the many, many, many reasons is so that they stay awake and alert to what you're doing. You don't get
Right.
sidetracked and start typing off a something to somebody else.
Right.
Mhm.
That makes
And you
sense?
got 100%
Mhm.
sense. It's spot on. And that's why you can't forget rapport either. You got to do your best to build rapport with them as quickly as possible, because with rapport and people liking you, they're going to give you their attention, right? Like if they think you're a tool, they're just going to go, this guy's a tool. So they're out doing whatever and shuffling papers and talking to other people while you're on the phone. Like, yeah, hey, yeah, can you grab me the foot long meatball sub from Subway? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear
Yeah.
shit like that all the
Well,
time.
it's true though. You
You
hear
know, it
stuff like
is.
that happens. Stuff like that happens, but it doesn't happen it doesn't happen much. It still
Mm-hmm.
happens sometimes, but not very
Oh,
often
sure.
when they're engaged in a meaningful
Right.
conversation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you got to be you have to understand what might be happening on their end. It's like a script, right? Or back to the presentation. You think it's all about what you're doing, you know,
Right.
but you have to understand that there's a whole nother side of the world that's going on. But we're always the star of our own movie in the stuff that we're saying and doing, and almost we don't enough take into consideration what the environment that they might be in or what they've been dealing with. And so the kind of science comes in with this, right? If they're constantly distracted on their end, you better do something that keeps them engaged, which doesn't
Right.
mean make it like a circus presentation on your side. Just make it short and sweet and conversational as you can, as meaningful. Don't
Mm-hmm.
waste their time because their brain will get distracted with other things.
And oftentimes when you call, like, I understand, and that not everybody's sitting there waiting for my call, right? They're not just going, boy, I just can't wait till Chuck calls me. They got things going on, as John said. And if I call someone and I can tell they're really rushed, like I'm calling a plumbing company or something, and he's answering his phone because the person who does is sick and he's out at a job. I respect that. Like I go, hey, but then I go, hey, so pin a time to talk to them later. And they really respect that and they
Yeah,
appreciate that. You're not trying to shove it at me when I got 90 million things going on, dude. I'm like, here, my the person that answered the phone is out today. I'm juggling this. I got a guy calling in for this part. I got delivery showing up. Listen, really. Oh, my grandfather,
yeah,
when I was a kid, would always tell me, you have two ears and you have one mouth for a reason. You need to listen more. Listen more. Like
yeah,
really listen to what's going on behind the scenes with this person. And they
right.
will respect the shit out of you because you handled it right. And then they will give you their full attention when you call them back later. They'll be like, oh
Yeah,
man, they'll be all apologetic and,
right.
oh
And
man, sorry
they'll be
about that.
grateful.
They'll be
Yeah, man,
grateful.
thanks.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So just
yeah,
listen.
yeah.
Just pay
Listen,
attention.
listen. Yeah, yeah, really. And that's where, like Chuck had mentioned a little while ago, we've seen people in our office, salespeople. and they're doing other things, and you could tell what they're not engaged with what's going on. They're
Right.
and you go, what, you're on our team and you're doing that?
Right.
What's going on?
Hmm.
But you go, how you know that if they're looking, they're scrolling through, oh my goodness, let's look at the sports scores from yesterday. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, I see the Chiefs lost and Patrick Mahomes got his knee twisted off. You know,
Right.
and you know, and meanwhile their stuff, the plumber example, he's in the background. And you could, if you'd listen, you could clue in on something's, the things that you need to be paying attention to are going
Right.
on, and you're totally missing it because you're not paying attention. But
Right.
yeah, it's like, listen, close your eyes. Imagine being there with them.
100%. That's spot on. And I've done that a lot. I close my eyes just so I can really put myself there. And that's
Yeah.
because you got to be present in their deal. They don't need to be present in
Yes.
yours because they're not selling me. I'm selling them. So I got to be present in their deal.